Has Smith and I beat today.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
No doubt about it. So Dr. Christopher Alley in the house. We're going to talk broadband. We're going to talk his books. This gentleman is a mover and shaker, knows all kinds of media inside and out. I love connecting with people that know media. You know, that's my background. So I'm going to ask him a lot of questions: TV, print, radio, social, digital, broadband. I mean, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun today, Smith.
You know, and I'll do this once the cameras go live. Thank you. This was last minute. The NBC and everybody announced this, and so did we talk about this yesterday on the show, or Jerry did on his show, about this Firefly broadband world coming up. And I said, I know a guy. I know a doctor. I know the doctor.
I can be a broadband guy. Yeah,
an expert.
Yeah.
An expert. And so this was very last minute. Thank you. And I know you have an 11 o'clock, and in our pre-production meeting, Judah, the North Star of the show, will keep us track on time.
Sounds great.
Because otherwise we'll be talking and everybody.
Oh yeah, I can talk about this all day.
Yeah, same. J-Dubs, we can rock and roll when you're ready. If you have props you want to relay to Christopher Alley, just put them in the comment section or hit me up with a DM on any of the social media platforms you're watching the show upon, which is literally all of them. Wickower, we're in your hands. Good Tuesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness. We are live across Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seaville network. We're presented by Yes Realty Partners. I trust the name in the game, Yes Realty Partners. Today's show, I think, is going to be an impactful one. We try to educate you guys through entertaining and approachable content, position on your smartphones. And today, it's about broadband and a partnership that's going to impact Central Virginia quite a bit. Judah Wickower is our director. If you can go to the studio camera, please, and then welcome the distinguished gentleman and Dr. Christopher Alley to the show. This dude is
the
flossing
other distinguished
right there.
gentleman.
No, look at this guy is flossing right now. I love it. What's up, Ray Cadell? Thank you for watching the show. First, how are you?
A little perspiring. It's a little warm out there, and as Christopher and I were talking in our pre-production show meeting, it's man, you just stand out there and you start sweating a little bit. Yeah. But Doc, thanks for showing up. I know this was a last minute. Thank you. So, Dr. Christopher Alley, do me a favor. Tell everybody who you are.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Christopher Alley. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Media Studies here at the University of Virginia. And a lot of my work specializes in broadband, particularly rural broadband. And a lot of my research for the last 5 years has been trying to answer the question, why don't we have rural broadband why don't we have broadband in most of rural America?
Yeah.
So there you go. Let's kick it off.
That's what we want to know, too. Why do we not?
A couple of reasons, but a lot of it has to do with politics, and very little of it actually has to do with technology. We got into broadband really late in the game here in the United States, and one of the major problems, of course, is that surprise, there's not a lot of people living in rural America, and so it's not very densely packed, which means that for a private broadband provider, they don't see the return on investment. And so for the last 10 years, we've been subsidizing providers to come and provide broadband for rural communities. The way a lot of those policies and subsidies are designed doesn't actually leave a lot of room for broadband providers to innovate. They tend to hit a floor more than they think about it, or they tend to think of subsidies as a ceiling. So they've tended to deploy really outdated technologies or no technologies at all. And so we see a big, what we would call the digital divide between rural America. Even if you leave Charlotte, 2 minutes out of Charlottesville, you're going to see a big drop off in your broadband speeds. And largely it's the way that these policies are written by the federal government and the Federal Communications Commission, which says you just have to provide broadband that's good enough. And not actually the kind of internet connectivity that we've all come to be really accustomed to, especially in a kind of Zoom COVID world.
Yeah.
But I was about to say, but that's changing a little bit now, right? This announcement that Firefly has put together with the regional jurisdictions, I think, is huge, and it kind of ties into this book, which we'll pitch here in a little while that you authored. But before you do that, Doc, I just want to put a little context to this. My wife is from a little village in Austria. It has 33 houses in it. The last house that was built was 250 years ago. And guess what it has? Broadband.
Yeah.
And it had broadband 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason I'm going to set you up a little bit on this, the way they did it is what Firefly's doing now. They co-opt a little bit different there. The electric company is owned by the government, but they use the easements to do this. And you would drive down these country roads and you would see these antennas on the poles, and it was Wi-Fi,
right.
free Wi-Fi.
Right.
You could connect right into it.
Yeah, and that's, again, something that we're seeing a lot of movement actually across the United States are electric cooperatives and power companies getting into providing retail broadband, which is really cool because they already have the infrastructure in place. They've got what we would call a middle mile, the kind of large fiber optic trunks that connect all of their different power stations. The middle mile. There's a middle mile, there's a last mile. The last mile is the connection from your ISP to your home. It's not literally a mile, but it's whatever technology you have that will deliver the internet. The middle mile is what happens between the ISP and part of the larger internet, and then we've got the backbones, which is really kind of the huge trunks of the internet. Because the internet, believe it or not, is not about the cloud, it's not about the ether, it's about wires, it's about actual material things. And that's one of the big problems. We don't have enough wires in the ground in rural America.
So the last mile is something we're used to hearing now in COVID, right? And today's world, right? I was having a conversation with a couple of business owners, and from a material perspective, right? They can get it to the middle, but they can't get it to the last mile.
Right.
So are we saying that
the last mile is generally tied to delivering of stuff? This is the first I'm hearing it from an internet site, so I'm learning here. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No.
And one of the problems is, of course, not all broadband technologies are equal. So there's different ones. The most common one in rural America is something called DSL, which is usually provided by a telephone company. It's an old school copper wire, better than dial-up. Then we've got cable, which is think about like Comcast Xfinity, Charter Communications, stuff like that. Ultra-fast download speeds, not great upload speeds.
Right.
We've got something called fixed wireless, which is the wireless that you had mentioned in Austria. We have a lot of it here. It's great for covering huge areas because it's wireless, actually. It uses radio transmissions to beam internet to houses. The kind of gold standard, future-proof broadband technology is fiber optics, right?
Yeah.
And we think about fiber to the home. We're going to hear a lot of that in the next few years, fiber to the home. The problem, fiber is expensive. It's about $27,000 a mile, or $100,000 a mile if you need to trench it, rather than put it on utility poles.
And in ground, as a recovering developer, you always want to put something in ground.
Absolutely. So that's more expensive. So we see
$100K?
Yeah, if you have to dig a new trench, right? If there's a lot of policies and a lot of conversation going on right now about something called dig once. Yeah. And what dig once means is that, let's say we're repairing a highway. Well, as part of that repairing, we would put a conduit underneath the highway, and then you don't have to dig again.
Man, I'll tell you what, Doc, I've been in this world for 30 years, and we were talking about it yesterday on Jerry's show. It's amazing, and I think this is a good thing, but it's amazing how people fight for these easements.
Yeah.
And power company won't let the cable company, and cable company won't let but that's starting to change a little bit, hopefully. I think that's what this is all about. So I think, is it fair to say what Firefly is doing in the jurisdictions and the different power companies is more of like a PPE or PPP, public-private partnership? Is it kind of looking like that?
Yeah, I mean, Firefly is kind of the great hero of broadband in Virginia.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're starting from a cooperative, right? The Central Virginia Electric Cooperative in Nelson County. Nelson County realized earlier on than a lot of counties here in Virginia the importance of not just broadband to the home, but fiber optics to the home, right? Which allows us to have that blazing fast download, great for Netflix, great for gaming, and then but also upload speeds, which is great for business, great for that two-way Zoom conversation. Nelson County realized this, started putting money into Firefly. CVEC obviously realized this as well, one of the early adapters in an electric cooperative to get into broadband. Nelson County is going to emerge as one of the most connected counties in the state pretty soon.
It is.
You know, by 2023.
I believe Jesse Rutherford made the
Yep.
I think it's 2023.
That's what he just said?
Yeah, 2023 they will
Yeah.
have almost entire fiber to the home, or at least the possibility of fiber to the
That's
home.
amazing.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, the fact that they're rolling now into new territories, into Louisa, into Botatort, into Albemarle.
So I got to give a little shout out to my home county of Fluvanna County because
yeah.
we're like right behind them.
Yeah.
And that's because CVEC, Central Virginia Electric Co-op, covers up a majority of Fluvanna County as it does
Absolutely.
partly of Louisa and Nelson County. But the latecomer to this is Dominion Power.
Right. Yeah.
And I think they're in the game now, if I read the articles correctly.
Yeah, and what Dominion Power is going to do is to provide that crucial middle mile, right? They've said, we're not really interested in being a retail broadband provider, but we will provide all of that backhaul. Because one of the things we don't often think about when we think about the internet is, okay, we've got a connection between our house and our internet service provider. But what happens between the internet service provider and the rest of the internet? That's where you need backhaul. That's where you need fiber. That's where you need that crucial middle mile of really high capacity.
So Firefly is going to be the personal interface or the retail interface.
Yeah, you subscribe to Firefly.
Got it. Dominion will be the middle.
The middle, and then it will go
cool.
to, you know, kind of the backhaul, the trunk of the internet, which is also privately owned, but by a bunch of different companies.
Why would Dominion not want to be in retail broadband?
Well, I mean, there's a big difference between providing power and providing the internet. And one of the major things is, of course, customer service.
Yeah.
When our toaster doesn't work, we don't call the electric company. When our computer internet doesn't work, we definitely call our ISP. So you have to have an entire infrastructure around customer service, but also technicians. You need repair people. You need people who can get on the ground quickly. That's a massive investment. For any company, and that's why we've also seen even some electric cooperatives be a little hesitant about entering into retail broadband. They might have that middle mile in place with fiber, but you know, they're looking at the pros and cons and the costs of it, and they know their customers certainly want it. This was a big deal with Rappahannock Electric,
which is also a co-op.
Which is also a co-op, and they hesitated for a while on retail broadband because of the costs involved.
So I am a commissioner of the Planning District Commission, know a little bit, been knowing about this for quite some time, some decades on it. The real big difference between Dominion and the co-ops were created back in the 30s as part of this electrification process. So they've been in the game way longer than Dominion has. And I think what happens with Dominion, it's a large corporation. They kind of get stuck in these lanes, and it's forever for them to move outside of the lane. But I did not know this, so thank you for sharing today. I was wondering who was taking care of the end client.
Yeah,
and that'll be Firefly, and they are rock stars.
And they really are. And one of the cool things, I mean, in my book, which I know we're going to talk about, I kind of sing the praises of electric and telephone cooperatives. But one of the really cool things that they do that large companies, either an ISP or a large power company, don't is they can really think about the community investment, and they can take a really long time to get that return on financial investment. If you have a shareholder company, you're looking at quarterly returns, which is why we don't see a lot of big ISPs serve rural America. That return on investment might take 10, 20 years. Co-ops a lot of times are willing to wait that amount of time because they understand the value to the community.
Well, it's the way they're structured also. I get a little check every year.
Exactly. Whereas, you know, the larger companies, particularly the larger ISPs, this is why we don't see a lot of cable companies out in rural America, is you have to wait a long time for that return on investment.
Let's do this. Judah, if we can get the cover of his book ready to go on screen so we can talk about Farm Fresh Broadband, the politics of rural connectivity by this gentleman right here. Before we do, how did Comcast and Xfinity become such a dominant player and corner this market like they have?
Mergers and acquisitions.
Is that how?
So what happened, you know, Comcast is from Philadelphia, started off as and they occupy almost the entire Philadelphia market. They have a bit of a monopoly there, and they just kind of kept gobbling up these regional cable companies, and we had an FCC, a Federal Communications Commission, that didn't see a merger it didn't like, if I'm going to be cynical about it, so approved all of these mergers. Now what we have is basically an agreement between cable companies, you know, Charter gets one area, Comcast gets another area, Cox gets another area, and they don't actually compete. And what happens when
Sounds
they don't
like a
compete?
monopoly to
They
me.
have monopolies, which means that we're not seeing the kind of innovation.
Right.
But that's about to
to
change.
Well, not in urban America, actually. There's still going to be very little competition for broadband in urban America. With the cooperatives getting into broadband, and of course, telephone cooperatives have been in broadband for a long time as well. And so with all of these, we're going to start to see, there might be a chance of seeing more competition for broadband in rural America
not
versus
urban.
urban
Well, I'm in
America.
rural,
Yeah,
and I can't
yeah.
wait to dump Comcast.
Right. I mean,
literally,
yeah.
I'm getting my fiber from Firefly
Right.
the end of this year.
Dude, we dumped Comcast for Ting here, and the difference was night and day.
Yeah.
It wasn't even
Yeah.
close.
I mean, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but Comcast sucks.
So there's no incentive when you're the monopoly player in a
hard.
market.
To innovate.
There's no incentive to innovate. There's also no incentive to lower prices. You don't compete, and when you don't compete, it's the consumer, it's the customer that loses out.
I have a business Comcast at my house, which, as we would call in back in the middle of the pandemic, and I'd lose it, and I pay almost $300 a month.
One of the major problems with cable internet, again, versus something like fiber optics is, of course, that upload speed. So, if you were zooming on the show from at home, that involves a tremendous amount of upload.
Yeah.
And cable also suffers from what's called network congestion. The more people in a neighborhood who are using the internet at the same time, the slower everybody's internet will be if you're on a cable connection. So certainly, Ben, my fiance, and I, when we were both working from home, but our neighborhood was working from home, we noticed a huge loss of service. Particularly, if I was teaching online, I would see a lot of network degradation there.
We have Valerie, is it K-Yacht, watching and giving you some props right now. Sorry if I messed up your name, Valerie. Is it Gray Poupon watching the show right now, giving you some props.
Yeah.
Let's get his book on screen, if we could. So he's going to put the cover on screen now. It's on screen.
Awesome.
Show's yours. Talk to us about the book.
So the book is 5 years in the making,
out. Good
and
for you.
it is. Thank you. It is coming out in September with MIT Press. It's available for pre-order if anyone's interested.
I got mine.
That's awesome, Keith. Thank you.
Did you pre-order?
I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
so it's
very
available
nice.
available on Amazon, available at BarnesandNoble.com. All those kind of things. The book tries to answer the question: how is it that we being the federal government, subsidizes rural broadband by about $8 billion a year, and yet the digital divide hasn't really shrunk, and in some capacities might be growing as we move towards 5G and fiber optics in some areas, and others we're still needing, or rural school kids still need to drive to a local McDonald's to piggyback off the Wi-Fi. How do we explain where this money is going? And the answer is kind of the subtitle says, it's all about politics. The largest telecommunications companies tended to gobble up a lot of this funding, leaving not a lot of money for the local companies, the telephone cooperatives, the electric cooperatives. Municipal broadband, right? Why can't municipalities get in the game when they don't have a local ISP? Again, we're seeing a lot of politicking, a lot of lobbying from the largest telecommunication companies. And so part of the book is this large policy exploration. How did policy let this happen? The other part of the book is thinking about putting a human face on broadband, because broadband, at the end of the day, it's not about technology, it's not about policy, it's about people. So in 2018, my hound dog Tuna and I drove 4,000 miles across the country. Tuna the hound dog, the greatest co-pilot and research assistant anyone ever had.
Nice.
And we drove
How does
through
that
the
work with the pause
Midwest.
in the computers?
Yep. We drove through the Midwest talking to folks. We'd stop people on the corner and asked about their internet. We met with local elected officials. I wrote a whole profile of Rock County, Minnesota. That becomes chapter 4 in the book, because Rock County is just 10,000 people in the corner of Minnesota that has 100% fiber to the home.
Really?
Because of a telephone cooperative and because a state that understood the value of broadband.
Unbelievable.
Super cool. It's a super cool story. And Tuna and I wrote the book, but Tuna was certainly around for the ride.
Tuna the hound dog.
Tuna the hound
The
dog.
hound dog.
Yeah.
It sounds like Liza the dog has a little competition going on.
Absolutely.
There.
I like to think the unofficial mascot of the Department of Media Studies.
There you go.
I think it's the official mascot.
Grayson says on Twitter, I'm going to paraphrase Grayson's comment here. How does an affluent county like Albemarle so far behind on broadband? You've covered this already. Maybe Grayson's tuning in now. I concur. You've got one of the wealthiest counties in the Commonwealth.
Right.
And then portions of Albemarle, are on, what, Dial-up?
There actually is a rather significant portion of Albemarle still using dial-up.
Still using dial-up?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Substantial.
a lot of that is that, who are if we think about Charlottesville in particular, we look at who are the two major providers, is CenturyLink and Comcast. There is no market incentive for them to leave Charlottesville because there's not that return on investment, and we haven't seen a lot of the federal support and the subsidies necessary. Broadband is expensive. So both the not only the reluctance but the refusal to serve rural communities by the large ISPs and then failure of policy to create an environment where we have these incentives means that we have a vacuum, which means people have dial-up or they've got maybe DSL that's been rotting away in the ground for a while.
So I'm going to give a little bit of shout out to the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. We've been having this conversation probably far too long, but it's an interesting conversation because we sit around the table and there's elected officials from all 6 jurisdictions, and the elected officials from Albemarle County, Greene County go to Flavanna and Nelson. How the hell did you do this?
Yeah.
The Firefly presentation, it sounds a lot like what's happened in Minnesota. Do you think we got it right? You think we're going in the right direction?
I think Firefly is fantastic, and I'm particularly excited. I mean, I've been following Firefly for a while. The CEO of CVEC, Gary Woods, is awesome.
Yeah, I can tell how passionate
he is about
this.
And so I'm thrilled. I mean, part of it is that they couldn't expand because they needed that support. You can't. That's a ton of money that they're going to be spending. The state of Virginia finally has gotten into funding broadband at a more substantial level, which is great. Of course, the federal government is also realizing, the President Biden's infrastructure plan, if it gets passed, $65 billion for broadband deployment.
$65 billion.
$65 billion for
With
broadband, with a B. Which is great. It's not the amount I was hoping for. The original number was $100 billion, but it's going to make a huge dent in the digital divide.
Knowing a little bit like I do how this money flows, the genius here with Firefly and the genius with doing all this stuff, once you have this system in place, that's where that federal money will want to go there a lot faster
absolutely.
than, okay, I have not have set something up. So Firefly and this PPP has proved that we can do this. It's not the numbers we want to see, right? Somebody said 25,000 folks or something along those lines,
right.
which is not even remotely close
That was
to
in the NBC 29 story.
Yeah. And it's important to note too that this is not going to be a cookie cutter solution. What works in Nelson, Fluvanna, Louisa, Albemarle may not work in Surrey County, although Dominion's also in Surrey County, which is pretty cool. But one of the big questions is what can we learn? And we can learn that electric cooperatives are really thinking carefully and strategically and passionately about connecting with broadband there.
They dragged Dominion along. I was in some of the conversations. Dominion was kicking and screaming and didn't want to do it, and they just had to do it.
Right.
And so the fact that I was unaware of the relationship between Firefly and the N Mile, because I was really worried about how they were going to service the client.
Right. And Firefly is going to deliver that last mile, that fiber
news.
to the home, just like Ting does here in Charlottesville.
Yeah, so we're mindful of time here. 10:37. Hildy Van Den Bulk says, absolutely awesome, Chris. Nicole Pepper giving you some props as well. Five states watching you on the show. This guy's a popular guy. Get us out of here with something poignant that we need to learn. I mean, I learned the whole time with him here.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
Taking feverish notes.
The show is yours.
Matter of fact, I'm thinking
mean,
about calling your 11 o'clock and going, hey.
Can he stay longer, please? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm always happy to come back, maybe when the book is out, and we can hold a physical copy. I can't wait for that to happen. I mean, I think one of the things that COVID has taught us through all the pain and all the trauma is that broadband, it's not a luxury, it's not a nice to have, it is a necessary utility to participate in the 21st century. For education, for health, for work, for play, for Skyping with grandma, right? This broadband is the infrastructure of the 21st century. And I finally think we have a moment, a really powerful moment to end the digital divide.
So I know you got a hard stop, but I got to ask this question, Christopher. See if you can do it in less than 30 seconds.
Hit me with it.
We get this all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Are we gonna go back? Right? We're in COVID. Is this gonna continue along, or is there gonna be some sort of hybrid? This whole new. Everything we're talking about today. Does that make any sense?
I mean, I think there's going to be a new equilibrium. I really do. I mean, University of Virginia is going back in the classroom. I can't wait to be back in the classroom in front of my students. But I definitely think that we're going to people who have broadband and high connection broadband have realized, I think, the value of working from home, and I think there's gonna be an equilibrium shift where we're gonna start to see maybe a lot more flexible presence. Do you have to be in the office? Maybe be in the office once a week, once a month for meetings. Maybe a lot of it can be done by being at your home, but the caveat here is that you need broadband, and you need future-proof, high-performance broadband, not just good enough broadband.
This dude is legit.
We're
Let's
gonna bring
welcome this guy back.
We're going to bring you back because we want to talk
Please.
about how to pay for this at the end user level.
Yeah,
Jeanette
absolutely.
Alley?
It's my aunt. Hi, Auntie Jeanette.
She says Winnipeg is watching. Go, Chris Alley. Norm Tarbell. I mean, we have. I can't get to these questions. We have to welcome this guy back on the show.
Oh, seat's always there for you anytime
Thank
you
you
want.
so much. Really appreciate it.
Bring
You're
Ben.
fantastic,
Thank you.
Real.
Oh, that was a miss
I'm
one.
serious.
Yeah.
Bring your
Thank you.
fiance next
Yeah.
time.
I'll bring the fiance. Yeah.
And he can talk real estate and broadband.
That's what I was
Yep.
hoping to
We
do.
have a round
Absolutely.
table. That would be
We have
so
a round-
fun.
we got
For
it.
sure.
We're
And
done.
your dogs.
And the dogs. Well, yeah. Well, we got a lot of dogs. We have a lot of infrastructure. Two Great Danes and a hound.
Two great dates.
We'll pass on the dogs.
Yeah.
Thank you for your fiance. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Christopher, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. So Keith, we learned quite a bit right there from Dr. Christopher Alley.
Yeah, we learned I knew he was awesome. We learned he's really, really awesome. Christopher, thank you, buddy.
Take care. Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out where you pick up from there.
Big shoes to fill. Break it out, Johnny Ornalis. Hello.
So I'm wondering if we can maybe tackle some of the questions on his behalf. What I learned today. Oh, I think Christopher left his phone here.
Oh yeah, J-Dub, do you want to run his phone? There we go. There we go.
So what I was always wondering, and Christopher solved this for us, or solved that question for me, was who's going to actually take care of the client, right? So if it was Dominion or whatever, I'm not so sure I'd be too happy personally about it. One of the things I was thinking as Christopher was talking, we're going to try to bring back some Segura folks and different solar folks because what they're talking about here, we probably can tie to solar, as far as rebates go and so forth and so on.
So the broadband in Albemarle County, we have a substantial portion of Albemarle still using dial-up,
Oh yeah.
which is crazy to say.
Earlysville is a prime example.
Yeah, Earlysville's a good example. You got parts of Keswick.
I mean, that's right next to the airport.
That's what I'm saying. You got parts of Keswick that have the worst internet you can possibly imagine. And these are estates.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
But sometimes you wonder, did they want it that way, right?
Well, I don't know about now.
No.
I think maybe a previous generation did.
Well-
or 2 generations ago did.
We have a mutual friend that I'm helping to find a piece of property.
Yeah.
And the number one search criteria is not number of bedrooms, not where it is. I need high-speed fiber internet. It really narrows it down. It narrows it down substantially. You got Charlottesville.
Okay.
with
Where in
10
Albemarle
with 10.
accommodates that?
The fiber internet, very few, right? He needs specifically fiber, right? So there's very, very few. I mean, somewhere around Pantops have it and all that stuff. My problem is that there is not a uniformed search mechanism to go ahead and do that. And this is something that Quentin Beckham and myself are working on at the association level, Home Builders Association, the Charlottesville Association of Realtors. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm so excited. I'm stuttering from our conversation. But there's not a simple search criteria that you can say I need fiber. There's different internet search features and all that kind of great stuff. But that's something that we're going to try to do because I can't just say, okay, I just want to search fiber. I may be wrong, but I can't figure out a way to do it. So that's something we're going to work on. Nelson County, we've got a listing coming up that's on the top of a mountain, literally on the top of a mountain. And guess what it's got?
Fiber.
It's got fiber, literally on the top of a mountain. I mean, the driveway is 3/4 of a mile uphill. Got to bring an SUV though to get up there.
A roundtable that would be good would be Christopher Alley and Jesse Rutherford.
Yeah.
Mustache Dan Pettit. I think Dominion Power needs to get in the game as half of Lake Monticello is serviced by Central Virginia Co-op. He says, I think Keith and Yona are on the Dominion Power side of the lake.
We are not.
You are not.
So it's interesting. Dan is spot on. The lake is pretty much cut straight down the middle, half Dominion, half Central Virginia Co-op. And when you start searching for homes over there, people will ask that. Just from a power perspective on it. And the other thing they're asking for, because they know if it's on the co-op side, they'll eventually get fiber. Now with Dominion in the game and Firefly in the game, it was just a natural progression. It just didn't happen fast enough, in my opinion, to go ahead and get there. But that's exactly what's going to happen. What's exactly going to happen is we're going to end up Dominion's easements. They're going to allow either Firefly to come in. I'm not really sure exactly how that relationship's going to solidify, but what I really care about is what Christopher answered us, is that even if I live on the Dominion side, my Firefly bill's going to I'm paying Firefly.
And you get their customer service.
And I'm calling Firefly when I have a problem.
Well, I especially like what he said with when your toaster goes out, you're not calling the power company. You just deal with the fact that you don't have electricity.
Oh, you go to buy a new.
I mean, that's pretty much what we do. When we don't have power, what do? You just sit around and wait for it to get turned back on.
Or if you have a whole house generator,
turn on your whole house generator.
Yeah, right.
But as soon as the internet goes out, the first thing you're doing is calling the internet company.
You're calling the internet company. You call and say, "Hey, I need this." But if you don't have power, also, you're probably more than likely not going to have internet, right? Because you're going to need power also with that. So it was an interesting conversation.
How about this one from Kelly? She says, "How are home values impacted dial-up, cable, and fiber?"
That's correct.
How are they impacted?
Well, it's impacted what we were just talking about.
I think she's talking like a percentage.
A percent, yeah. I couldn't rattle that number off the top of my head. I can tell you that it does make a difference, right? Because when somebody wants to buy a home, they're not asking, "Hey, do you have dial-up?" Yeah. They're asking,
right.
"Does the home does it have fiber? What is their up?" And the good doctor mentioned something that's worth talking about. It's this upload and download speed. And I'm learning this. This is way outside of my scope of expertise. But I'm learning. And that's the questions we're getting asked now. I need to know what the upload and the download speed is.
It makes a huge difference. Judah, we just went through this here with the network. The upload and download speed.
Yeah, and so it's not, and it's funny, nobody asks now, do you have power? Somebody doesn't, hey, do you have 200 amp or 400 amp?
Do you have running water?
Do you have running water, right?
Yeah.
But that's literally the top number one question, tell me about the upload and download speed and that. And so the market's tight to start with. If that's your primary concern or criteria at the moment, it minimizes it drastically.
Like how much so?
Well, we just talked about it. It's Fulvana. So if you want fiber, it's really Ting's footprint.
City of Charlottesville.
Right, and they have some Albemarle County. A little bit,
yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot, and Nelson County. And portions of Fulvana County, because they're rolling it in, so we can say, look, okay, we know, because we can look on Firefly sites, for instance, over at Lake Monticello and the acres where I live. Oops, I just did it again. That sounds like a song. Who said that? Oops, I did it. What?
I think that was Britney Spears.
Britney Spears, who's all over the news now, right?
Britney Spears.
We're going to have it by the end of this year, so we can start marketing it that we would have, fiber into
the lake.
Or portions of it at this point.
That's
but
going
they're
to be
rolling.
huge for the lake.
Yeah, so I think it. What you mentioned yesterday is very much so the truth. It should have happened sooner. It's going to take a long time before it gets there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking for this to be a complete rollout in Albemarle.
Years.
I mean, we're talking maybe close to 10 years.
Well,
25,000 people 3 years from now.
Yeah, and it's just the nature of the system, right? And Fulvana County and Nelson County, and I didn't want to contradict the good doctor, but Nelson County actually tried it on its own quite some time ago.
And they did not want to continue doing that.
It did not work. The math didn't work. But it plays to his comments that this is why PPPs are so important.
Well, because the jurisdiction doesn't want to get into customer service.
That's not what they do.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
That's not what they do.
They don't want to get into implementation. They want to tell people what to do.
That's a bit cynical, but no, they help people along. Whatever.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave the cynical part of it out of it. Robin.
Okay.
Since when is Robin? Robin is not the cynical guy.
The municipalities. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right.
Yeah.
They want to be a guide.
Well, I'll walk it back a little bit. local governments are not good at running business.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And in my opinion. So in this case,
I agree.
it didn't work for numerous reasons, and you might want to tag Jesse. He'll probably fill in the exact reasons on it. But it didn't work for numerous reasons. The math just didn't work. But what they did, they had the foresight of laying this backbone concept or this middle concept of it. And then what they've done, they made a marriage with the CVEC, who created this Firefly, which was super forward thinking on that end of it. And we eventually in a region are going to have fiber internet in the rural areas. It may not happen as fast as you and I wish to happen in it, on par of Northern Virginia, which is only going to bring people here more.
Right. It's only going to mean that you can live, work, and play in Charlottesville and Central Virginia more.
Without a doubt.
It's going to distance yourself away from the hustle and bustle of Inova and the quality of life impacted by waiting in traffic to go 2 miles.
So it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast this morning while I was doing my bike ride from Dr. Yoon.
Okay.
And a gentleman by the name of Brian Buffini, who's
he's big time.
Big time. Yeah. Yon and I coach and mentor folks. I probably never told you this, but we actually get coached. And we pay a monthly fee to be coached by him, because in order for us to coach folks, we kind of coach up on that. And there was a whole conversation going on, which the light bulb went on. I wanted to throw this to you, see what you thought. Part of what Dr. Yoon is seeing, and it just was like a light bulb moment for me, that part of this, you're starting to see an uptick of listings, minimal at this point. But you're starting to see what it is people my age, the baby boomers, that are now deciding, okay, they feel safe to bring folks in the house. They feel safe, and you're starting to see that. And it's an interesting balance, because if you take a look at last year's sales performances, the largest buying profile by around 38, 39, 40% is millennials. You know who's selling the most now?
You guys.
Me.
Yeah. Where are you moving to?
I don't know.
Are you
talking to Mrs. Smith again?
I'm not talking to you specifically. Okay. Are the boomers leaving their area?
I thought there was something I didn't know.
Where are they moving to?
Well, generally either out of the area, closer to grandkids. I mean, that's been our experience. Our experience is they're moving out of the area, closer to grandkids. In our case, we've got bi-coastal, right? And and it's a real conversation we're having at our age. We're at our age, at our life, that, okay, do we want to, where's a second home or something along those lines? And it's purely revolved around
your grandchildren.
Grandchildren.
Yeah.
And 5 years ago, I would have told you were nuts if I would be thinking that. And literally, that's what we're thinking. But it's interesting. That's why you're starting to see it. And as I was listening to the good doctor, I was thinking about our listings coming up. And darn it, 3/4 of them look like me, age-wise. So
that's good.
Little thing to throw out there.
Something better than nothing.
The market is. I've been tracking this market monitor daily, and I was telling you yesterday, getting exciting about seeing stuff come on, and then on Sunday it just went.
Yeah, it all went under contract over the weekend.
I looked at it this morning, and it's lopsided again. It's like 10 units coming on and 30 going off.
Mustache Dan Pettit says Raintree, Fieldbrook area in Albemarle County has fiber.
Yeah.
He says Ting has already put Inground stuff in the lake area and will soon have service.
Lake as in Lake Monticello?
Are you talking Lake Monticello there, Dan? He says Ting has already put Inground stuff in our area and will soon have service. Maybe he's talking Central Virginia.
I know it's not Lake Monticello. I know that's Firefly, so it may be something. But they're in the urban ring, and they're very spotty in it, and it's because it's super expensive. $100,000.
$100,000 to trench it for each mile.
And do you know why it's $100,000?
No.
What else is in the ground? That's the problem. So these easements are shared, right? So you have a power line, you have a water line, you have a sewer line, and here's the problem: everybody wants 10-foot separations. So now if I got like a 50-foot easement or a 20-foot easement, you run out of real estate real fast, because power you can't have but so close to it, right? And it's because of digging up and all these different stuff. And again, it's just a world I know a little bit too much about. and that stuff. But anyway, it was an interesting interview. Anything else on the feed, sir?
Yeah, I mean, most folks are asking about the value it has on your homes. I mean, that's the question we're getting. It's not an exact number, but if you don't have the fiber, your home is not going to sell to someone who needs fiber.
Let's put it this way: it positions you on the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Right? Is it directly related? If I have fiber, your house is fiber. Like Pearl, one of our wonderful sponsors, right?
Yeah.
If you use Pearl, it's pretty guaranteed your number's going to go up by 5%. I don't think anybody's ever done any research on that. I don't know if you could ever do
There
research
should be
on
that should be a new kind of certification.
it. Could be.
Like ISP certified homes by a third party.
Yeah, the problem, the struggle here, I didn't want to use the word problem, but the struggle here is verification of it. And that's what I was trying to go to earlier.
Well, you can do speed tests.
Yeah, but they don't work, brother.
Speed test, what?
I don't know. I've done them before in houses in Earlysville, and we've done. You're talking about the speed test you get online?
Yeah.
Yeah, very unreliable. We actually, a couple of homes we sold in Earlysville to professors that were remote teaching around the world. What we wrote in the contract that we were able to test it, and that's what we did during the home inspection period. We physically tested it. It has DSL there. And it had to hit a certain upload and a certain download, and we did this on 2 projects over there. We did a Skype call, not a Skype, it was a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Set up.
And how was the quality?
Good. It worked out. It was enough to say, okay, let's buy the house.
Okay.
But we made it a contingency, and because to tell you how screwed up it was, when I called, this is with DSL. When I called Embark or Sprint or whatever the heck they are now these days, they said, we don't have any to the house. I said, what do you mean you don't have it to the house? I'm looking at a Sprint box right here. I've got a laptop connected to it. Sprint did not know they had service to that house. So that's the problem. The problem is there isn't a uniformed mapping out. And it's something we talked about at the Planning District Commission is there to me, they're built to do this. The problem is who's going to fund it.
Yeah.
Right? To do a search study. I was trying to push it a little bit from a Realtors Association's perspective. At least we can move that ball forward, that we make it a required field, that you need to figure out what you upload and your
Square feet, bedrooms, bathrooms, lot size, fiber. Or internet speed.
Internet speed.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. What is your upload speed and your download speed? And the problem with that is how do you verify that? And your third party would
like a Pearl certification.
Would be a Pearl certification.
Or maybe Pearl even wraps it into what they do.
It's funny you should say that. I got a conversation
Joseph
with Joe.
Gentile, check speed, the certification. And if you have a third party verifying the speed,
then you're good to go.
Yeah. A trusted third party.
And then you can go ahead and put it in.
And Pearl can charge for that.
Yeah. And that's the struggle on our end of it, because we only can be the source of the source. We're not the experts.
Right. Well, you wouldn't want the realtor to be the verification of speed.
No. Well,
but Pearl's doing
but what you can do,
home efficiency, right?
They do home efficiency. I literally, I'm talking to Joe this afternoon after the show today, so I'll ask Joe if this is something that they would be willing to consider. But square footage, right? If you ever read the MLS listing, we don't verify square footage. This comes from either a recent appraisal, comes from the tax records, or it comes from the builder, or it comes from the homeowner. We don't say we're providing this. So that's the struggle, is how do you verify the upload speed and the download speed?
That's got me thinking, why?
I think we got a business brewing.
Why do some listing sites have the square footage different on a home?
Because I just told you. Because there's different sources.
There it is.
Right?
Okay.
If you ever pulled up your house, does it match exactly what your square footage is in your house? From GIS, excuse me.
It's pretty darn close.
Yeah. So that probably came from the builder when the builder built the house.
Yeah.
Because the builder needs the square footage to get the building permit.
Right.
And why do they need the square footage to get the building permit?
Tell me.
Because that's how they charge.
Okay.
That's how the county or the cities charge, amongst other ways, for the actual building permit, is by the square footage on that end of it. So
I don't know that either.
that's how come a 900 square foot house is X dollar building permit, and the 3,000 square foot is whatever it's based by square footage. But I'll tell you, you and I can roll out a set of plans, and I bet you we'll come up with 2 different square footages on the house.
Really?
Oh, guarantee it. Guarantee it. It happens all the time. And this is a debate, and I used to have this debate with clients all the time, right? So I do my square footage outside to outside. You might say the square footage is the finished space, which is the inside of it's going to be the inside of the studs, not the outside of the studs.
Yeah.
I got a 2x6 wall versus a 2x4 wall. I have an 8-inch wall versus a 4-inch wall.
Well, you don't include the garage.
No, so this is finished.
Yeah.
And then, so my house, I have a two-story rooms. My foyer's 2-story. My living room's 2-story. Do I count that as double? Do I count that as single?
You can't count that as double.
Some people do.
You're saying you
So
have
let me-
tall ceilings?
Yeah, and
That's what you're saying, right?
yeah, but there's different square footages. If I'm using square footage to sell, I would agree with you. It's floor space.
Yeah, it's floor space.
But when I'm building, I'm not, because I got to heat that square footage. I got to cool that square footage, right? It's a weird
So when
thing.
someone is building a home and they're getting a building permit and they have a great room that has 20-foot ceilings, they're including that as
Oh,
two
no.
floors?
For the building permit, we're not. We're going to
Okay.
do floor. But from my budgeting and my cost of construction, I'm not going to use. I mean, that's how I do it, or used to do it on that, because I now have my
Yeah,
heating and cooling.
I get that. It's going to cost more.
It's going to
Because
cost
your
more.
ceilings are taller.
Because in theory, it's 2 rooms.
But you couldn't say that as 2 floors
No.
in your listing.
No, you could not do that.
Because people would be like, this is smoke and mirrors.
But the point I'm trying to make is it means different things to different people.
Sure.
And that's where this verification thing, that's what I love about our show. If we
Yeah.
just picked a topic and just went off on it.
Well, and a lot of folks take a Four Seasons room,
Sure.
even though it's outside and maybe screened in. Some people call that
Well, that's not 4 seasons, and that's a 3-season
Three
room.
Seasons room. Some people call that square footage.
Yeah.
Work that into square footage.
And
I do not.
And you should not.
Yeah.
If
'Cause
it's
not
heated and
finished.
if it's heated and cooled, then you could get away with that a little bit. But normally, what will happen in the listings, it should be broken down.
Yeah, into finished into unfinished.
Got it. The point I'm trying to make is that we, I come from, I've got a Class A built, so I have a bit of an expertise
Sure.
in this end of it, but most realtors do not have the expertise that I have in it. And, you should always double check your square footage, check your appraisal, your tax records. I guess the point we're trying to make here is the verification of the upload and download. How do we do that? It's a great question.
Joseph.
Hopefully Joseph can do it.
If not,
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a more of a basic question. How do you do that? How does one do that? I did it just,
well, you did it the practical way. You
I
did
did
the
it-
speed test, and then you didn't trust the speed test. You're like, let's start zooming some people.
I
And
mean,
the zoom wasn't dropping and grainy.
yeah, I'm not that smart. So,
That's how you do it.
yeah,
That was the way I would do it.
yeah, I mean, it's okay.
What else can you do?
Well, I was willing to take the speed test on face value, or our client was willing to do that, until we both of us separately called Sprint, and both of us said on 2 different phone calls, nope, you don't have Sprint, you don't have DSL to the house. And we're like, well, hold it. I got a copy of a bill that we're buying a house from that says they got DSL. I think it was a 20 up and 20 down is what they were paying for, which is anemic.
Yeah, that's not good.
Right. But, and we both, our clients and I looked at it, was on 2 separate occasions, looked at each other and said, yeah, let's do a real world test and let's call somebody in Italy and see how it goes.
Katie Pearl.
Hey,
I love
Katie.
when you comment. Katie Pearl says, we had a debate with our architect about counting the 2-story great room space twice. Our architect counted it twice. We were pretty upset. Luckily, our builder didn't charge us for that in our square footage numbers.
Yeah. So there you go. You got, it's an opinion thing. And Katie's a rock star, and she went to bat and won. Sometimes builders double it, sometimes they don't. I'm sure somewhere in her quote, because she's doing a custom home.
Yeah, custom home.
Yeah, so the HVAC system's a little bit up costs are a little bit higher than if there was a floor in there and you had because it's just a huge volume of air to move around and heat and cool.
So this question comes in from Nathan. Keith, what is it going to take for the market to turn around and be more of a buyer's market? It sounds like you're saying that's not going to happen anytime soon.
So that is interesting. That was kind of the question that Dr. Yoon and Brian Buffini were batting around on this podcast. Thank you. This podcast. I mean, it's amazing somebody does something other than Real Talk. I don't understand that. They were projecting well into 2022, and I agree with that.
Seller's market well into 2022?
Yeah, but not what it was. Right, you're starting to see it already. You're starting to see the normalization, for lack of a better term, and we're actually. Thank you for setting me up.
Yeah.
Next Friday, or was it Brian?
Nathan.
Nathan, thank you, Nathan. Nathan, thank you for setting us up. Not this Friday because I'm not going to be here, but the following Friday, we're going to do what we did last year. What we did last year was, we did a little predicting, a little bit of bold prediction. Remember this year we caught a bunch of crap about predicting the V, and I think we were right.
We were definitely right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk about why this is not a bubble, right? And kind of do a couple of stats on that. So Nathan, please listen at this Friday, but I think it's the 8th or whatever.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
The bottom line is, it's always a good time to buy if it's the right time for you to buy.
And if you're talking this specific market, let's talk, say, Central Virginia. Central Virginia may be a seller's market for a really, really, really long time.
It kind of always was.
With this Zoomtown phenomenon.
Yeah. It always was. We talked about this before. I ran the 20 years numbers, even including the recession, depression, as I would call it, the housing depression. We averaged somewhere around 5% over 20 years, year over year. We just never really went down. So Nathan, don't wait. Now's the time to buy. Pricing's going to go up. Value's going to go up on this stuff. Unbelievable interest rate. It's still. I suspect we're gonna hover plus or minus over 3 for the rest of the year. 2020 might go tick up around 4 on that end of it, based on the experts I'm reading, and that'll.
2022.
Thank you, 2022. Yeah. I apologize. Around 4% on that end of it, but.
Audra says it does matter if you're looking for specific homes or your dream homes. They're just not out there.
Yeah.
And if you do go after one that you see, you better get ready to pay for it. So it matters in that regard. It
matters in that regard, but we're also seeing less multiple offers hitting the market. Considerable less. I mean, dozens to 1 or 2. And I think across the board, if you talk to some real estate agents, depending on the price points, you're starting to see a little bit of a cooling off of it, and it does matter. I mean, but I know this much because we talked about this more than once. Stay in the game. It's not easy. But what's going to go up? Your rent.
Oh, yeah.
Once you do that 30-year mortgage locked in at 3%, it's locked in for 30 years. You're not, and your value is going to go up. But this is part of what we're going to talk about with this.
Leslie Gardner says Pavilions at Pantops
has fiber.
Yeah.
Well, Pantops, yeah, because I know Riverside Village has that, and maybe even Cascadia. You should tag Michael Plecker and Fontana. They may also.
Michael Plecker or Andre Xavier.
That's exactly. Yeah, Andre. Yeah.
Fiber at Cascadia?
They may have that because I know for a fact because I was part of it. It's at Riverside Village, and that's right across the street. So I suspect they ran it in there, and that's the game, right? How many connections you're going to get, so forth and so on. I don't know what. I mean, with all due respect to Comcast, which I'm not a fan of, I think I made that pretty clear.
Me too.
I can assure you, I don't have a phone. I mean, this is my phone. Who has a landline? Right? All I need is internet. So the phone company's not going to have a line to my house. Cable's not going to have a line to my house. I'm going to have fiber to my house, and that's it. I'm done. Right? That's it. That's all I need.
Elena Mangione.
Hey, Elena.
Owns Mangione's with the fabulous Bert. She says, great topical question. When a company like Ting brings fiber to a wealthy area such as Dairy Market, but stops short of underrepresented neighborhoods such as 10th and Page, how do we take action? And she also says, and avoid the monopolies of Comcast even in Seville, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to answer that other than she's spot on. I will give her a shout out. We had an event last week, I think it was, and I got to hug on Elena. She's a rock star, and told her the story. My mother and I and my father, we go to her restaurant regularly, and it just reminds her of home and that whole family style Italian. And you know, one of the hardest things to make is it's the Italian coming out of me, a really good meatball and spaghetti. That's really hard to make well. And they do it. They do a freaking awesome job of it. She was in tears when I was telling the story.
That's fantastic.
I bring my mommy there all the time.
Ting is offering the free fiber at its park.
Mm-hmm. That's right, yeah.
They've also fibered our building here. There are not many nodes left.
No, but a shout out to Ting, because we had a memorial service in the Ark Park for a friend of ours who passed away on Friday. And I did not realize that it was free Wi-Fi. Even though our office is there, I just never realized that it was. And they were live. It was a concert kind of thing, and they were live streaming it, and it was pretty awesome. So shout out to Ting. So there's going to be this mixture, but the question becomes,
Go ahead.
As a real estate agent, how do I verify what's at the house? This is a problem, right? And again,
third party.
The third party is it, other than doing, classic shoe leather, getting on the ground, looking at the pedestal, what do you got in here? Do what we did to do it, but it shouldn't be that way. It should be a very simple thing, and it's because there's so many different variants out there. It's just really hard to get a grip around it.
How about this one on Waynesboro in the Valley? Could Waynesboro and the Shenandoah Valley become even more popular by picking up its fiber implementation speed?
So we buy and sell quite a lot there, but I'm not expert out there on this subject. I am pretty sure they have a ton of fiber out there.
That's what the person's alluding to.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and it's part of the reason why it's growing out that way. And I think everybody was predicting the Waynesboro market and that sort of to take a bit of a slowdown.
But it hasn't.
It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It's quite the opposite. Gas has been staying a little bit stable, which is a good thing.
My buddy just bought a house in the Grey Rock neighborhood, and he says hopping on the interstate and going to Waynesboro for groceries and Lowe's and Home Depot and all the stuff out there, he says it is so easy.
So I live in Lake Monticello, and if I want to go to Lowe's, depending on what I want to buy, because I look online what's available.
You go to Zion's Crossroads Lowe's, don't you?
No, because I can't get what I want a lot of times in Zion's Crossroads. I've never had a problem on the other side of the mountain. Little things. I wanted to buy some black eye Susans for the garden and stuff like that. They just didn't have any left, but they had a ton of them there. So I drove to the other side of the mountain.
Well, how about the Ace?
The Ace Hardware is good where I live.
Yeah.
Also, the new thing that opened up is Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply. Did you ever think you'd see a Tractor Supply there?
Never.
Yeah.
But guess what I bought my gas grill from?
Oh, Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply.
It's so convenient.
Not only did I buy my new gas grill, which I put together on Sunday.
That Tractor Supply is going to crush it.
I put it together on Sunday, and I'm proud to report I put it together, and I didn't use one foul letter. I didn't drop one F-bomb.
You didn't blow anything up.
I didn't blow anything up. I didn't use one F-bomb in putting it together. But I went online, ordered it, and it was delivered in 2 hours to my house.
Katie says, maybe you've already covered this, but thoughts on what Elon Musk's Starlink will do to the market?
Wow. Way above my pay grade. I know about that much about Starlink. Is this the satellite?
That could be a good topic for the next show.
Yeah. I don't know enough to speak about it. I apologize. Sorry, Katie.
No, it's a good question. We will do some research and bring it up on the next program. You're out Friday.
I am out Friday.
You're driving to Connecticut.
I'm driving to Connecticut.
Your favorite.
Yay. Yay, me.
Quentin Beckham is going to fill
Quentin
in.
Beckham's coming in. Did he tell you what his thinkings were?
He's reached out to Lee.
Yep.
But that's all I've heard. I'm sure it's going to be fun.
I would strap on the seatbelt into the chair.
Okay, what is the idea?
Something about another kind of 4th of July.
Oh, he kind of alluded to that.
Quiz show, fun thing.
Starlink is. Let's talk about that next show.
I'll follow.
It's a low latency broadband internet system to meet the needs of consumers across the globe.
I have no idea what you just said.
Katie, that was a good question.
Okay, nice job, Katie.
That was a good question.
Thank you for ending the show on Smith going.
We like that question. We will do some research on it, Katie Pearl.
Nice way to end the show, Katie.
So
Appreciate it.
The president of CAR on Friday, maybe Lee Elberson as well, with an.
I think that's a lock-in.
Is it a lock-in? Independence Day theme.
Lock-in. Not in that lock-in, but a lock-in.
On Friday morning, yes. That's a dad joke right there. He's got a dad joke.
Yeah, dude, the look on your face was exactly what my children do to me.
The dad joke.
Like, really?
Lumos in Waynesboro is getting props on the feed.
Thank you.
For fiber.
Oh, yeah. Lumos, that's it. That's right. So it's funny. I was telling, I know that we're spending so much time together. One of my half a dozen stories I was telling to Christopher. I could just watch your face go.
I've heard that story so many times. I could recite that story verbatim. And what's coming next.
And what's coming next.
Yeah.
And then
I've heard the proposal story. I could recite that story in my sleep.
I'm sorry you can do that.
Yeah.
But so you're just like my children.
I'm spending more time with you than your kids are.
That's without a doubt. That's
literally true.
That is literally true.
Yeah.
That is literally true.
Because one of them lives in Connecticut, one of them lives in Seattle.
That's literally true.
I mean,
even if you calculate in the FaceTime time I spend with them, it's not even freaking close.
And here's another reflection of work, more time with Judah than I do most likely than my wife and kid.
So I was watching your faces. I was telling the story, and I went, "Oh man, I think I got to get better stories."
Yes, different ones.
Different stories.
Utilize different ones.
But then I was thinking. But what you did is you kept me honest, because now I was like, okay, I got to make sure because you add a little flavor here and there. At least I think.
Well, no, every story is slightly different with a little bit more BS depending on who you're talking to.
There you go. Nice to see you. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. You guys have
but that's fun, though, right?
It is fun.
Yeah.
And that makes you a good storyteller.
Apparently, I need news stories, though.
No, if you tell that story to the person for the first time, maybe even a second or third time, that story is very compelling.
How many times did I tell you that story?
I probably heard that story 100 times.
Really? Damn.
I ain't hating, though. I'm not hating.
No, I know you're not.
Just stating.
You're not. I know you're not hating. It's just, man, I got to work on my stories.
So get us out of here with something poignant on the market.
So it's improving, right?
Yeah.
It's stable.
Do you really think it's stabilized?
I really did get.
Really think
so compared to what it was, absolutely it is.
I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in August, end of August.
Oh yeah, totally.
When all these families have to go to school,
they're
going to be in the market, back from vacation.
Yeah. So
they're going to have the work and potentially school from home again situation.
So I'd like to think we took our vacation and planned this based on what you and I have been talking about for a while. So we did ours in late May and kind of got it over with. But the world has done this now, and everybody's starting to come back. You're I mean, the flips meaning the come on, active, and pending are pretty super active. But at the end of the day, new homes are coming on the market. I think the big issue is the
Folks are asking for an update on your meeting with the university last week.
Oh, I was wondering when that was going to...
You brought that up.
I did bring it
at the end of last show. How did it go? And what can you talk about?
Yeah. Oh, wow. It went well.
This is the affordable housing meeting.
Yeah.
This is second year staying on grounds meeting.
Yeah, that topic did not come up.
Really? Okay. So that's not realistic.
That topic did not come up, and I felt it was inappropriate who was in the room for me to bring it up.
Okay.
On that end of it. So what this meeting turned out to be was somebody asked me my opinion. They wanted my opinion on UVA's planned program.
Okay.
And what I shared with everybody in the room was what you and I have been talking about, is I think what they're trying to do is a great thing. I think there's two things and they recognize this, there's two things UVA needs to get right. The two T's, transparency and trust. And I get the idea of the 1,000 and 1,500. They now understand, because I've been beating into their head, that this is going to take quite a few years to do that. I've really got their wheels turning on trying to attack something much smaller, 6 to 12 units, something small.
That's tangible.
To do a POP.
Proof of performance.
Proof of performance. So it was interesting. I pitched that several times in Zoom meetings, and you get a lot of nods. It's very different when you're face to face.
Sure.
Right? It's just the being able to communicate and talk about, I can get some of my skills going and doing that. So I got more than shake of heads. I've got, well, this is maybe a good idea. I can tell you the consultants all over it. UVA needs a little bit of pushing. You know, I think UVA, I think, is afraid of making a mistake. And this is my opinion, for what it's worth. And this is not a negative on anybody on the other side of the table. It's just they're really afraid of getting this wrong.
Yeah.
And they're really afraid of being outside of their sphere of expertise. And I get all that. One of the things about doing a small POP project, it'll help you vet through that.
Sure.
Here's what I shared with them, and then I'll say in public, and I share with everybody. Here's the deal. The people who you're trying to serve, if you're trying to do this big, long term, they'll call you out in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
That's going to be worse than trying a small project, making a ton of mistakes, because you will, and the community that you're trying to serve, there'll be some haters maybe, but for the most part, everybody's going to try to, okay, you're trying to do something, you listen to us, this didn't work, and start learning and moving. How do you learn? By doing. What the community that I speak to, they just don't want something to create a plan just to create a plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They want real, tangible action. And they're not going to hit it out of the ballpark. What was the first thing you ever did in business? I know I did. I made a ton of mistakes. I probably made a ton of mistakes this conversation. Matter of fact, I know I did. The story was one. but you know, so I'm pushing that rock uphill.
Little beta tests, like you're saying. Do a little something and learn.
You know, get a small.
They own so much dirt.
There's great nonprofits in the thing.
Habitat.
Habitat, perfect.
Yeah.
pH, perfect. Land trust, perfect.
Yeah.
Or a combination thereof.
Yeah.
Or something, and say, okay, guys, here is a little half-acre lot, whatever the size is. Go to town.
Yeah.
No, it's even better than that. Okay, consultant.
Yeah.
Work with these people. Let's come up with a plan for this. While you're working on this big plan.
Love the idea.
Yeah, and so I got a lot more than pleasantry, nodding the head. You could just see the wheels turning, and they're trying to figure out how they can do it. So I'm going to keep on pushing that rock uphill. Eventually, I'll get uninvited if they don't want to. They don't want to.
They want you to push the rock uphill. So that's a good way to close right there.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, sure thing. The distinguished gentleman is back in a week. Friday, we have the president of CAR, Quentin Beckham, and also Lee Elberson on the show. Mm-hmm. So it'll be a good one. CEO of Claiborne.
Who's on your noon show, sir?
Today is Tuesday. Alex Irving.
Oh, Alex. Cool. Cool.
Tuesdays.
Got to get him in. That'd be a lot of fun.
He's
one-on-one.
Fantastic. That whole family is off the charts bright. So
well,
bright. So that's the show. This is Real Talk. We want to give some love to Interstate Service Company. Mm-hmm. Interstate Service Company, one of the presenting sponsors of the show, ISC, Interstate Service Company.
Yeah, and we're talking about this. We're talking about houses. You know, we're and it's to talk about the market, just to put a little end to it and tie it into interstate. I am not working with any. I have one buyer client.
What's up, Quentin? Quentin's watching.
Hey,
now.
Quentin Beckham. I have one buyer client, but Yona and I have about a half a dozen listing clients. Don't know. It's not scientific, but it seems to be that we're working on it. So I think you're going to start seeing more homes come on the market here in the near future. I think this whole summer.
So.
Yeah, I mean it's but.
I think you will, because people are going to be back from vacation.
Yeah, and we talked about this the other day. When I'm looking at numbers now and trends, I'm just like taking 2020 and putting it on the side, and I'm looking at 18 and 19.
Yeah.
Right, because 2020 was just such
an anomaly.
It was such an anomaly,
Yeah.
all across the board, on that end of it. So that's what I'm looking at. But it's man, if you want to buy now, just get out there, man. It's the time to do it, and be a little patient. Bring your patience with you, and hire a trusted advisor.
Yes, Realty Partners.
Or any other realtors in
Yes,
car.
Realty Partners.
I know that, but there's a ton of good ones out there.
They're watching too. So you're playing it the right way. Thank you for joining us on Real Talk. We are back in about an hour and 6 minutes on the I Love CVille show. You guys have a good morning, and thank you for tuning in today. Take care. Chris was amazing.
I mean, that was a mid-afternoon phone call.